everyone. I hope you had a good week. Yesterday I got my vaccine and it's my second shot, so it's very painful. I'm like aching all over. But have you guys gotten your vaccine shots? Because I hear that the US is up to some no good with the vaccines in that it won't let India manufacture the Pfizer vaccines. But China and Russia are not only letting Serbia manufacture it, but they're letting Serbia make money out of it by selling it to other countries. Well, not make money, but get hard resources, I guess. Um, and so today, okay, so eventually I kind of want to do a video where we debunk all of the PragerU lies. But today we had Seema Hernandez, who ran for Senate in Texas, and we read what is to be done. Well, just a very little part of it because there was a big conversation. But what is to be done is the very important Lenin piece where you learn what you need to do and what kind of political party you need to build. And basically everyone who's fought, well, okay, sorry, no. Most people have lost because it's hard taking on power and sometimes it's not even under their control. But everyone who's won has done it using what is to be done as a model. So I'm going to have to ask you, do you guys there's two possibilities, which is we can continue with like what is to be done, but it's a very long piece and it's going to take a while. Or we can kind of bring it back here and there and get it done over the course of like 6 to 8 months, but we'll also be doing other pieces. So it's really up to you, but I do want you to vote for it. And also, I want you guys to definitely go to Streamlabs. I'll send you our Streamlabs URL, and if you can, please donate even like $5, because and then like next week we'll put up the what do you call it? We'll put up the okay. We'll put up the like a QR code. So I will now just release this here to both Streamlabs and to both YouTube, Twitch, and I believe we're on Facebook, and we're also coming on VK and Rofkin soon. So with that, I hope you enjoy this, and I'll be here at the end to answer questions, to troll, whatever else you want to happen. And next week we'll maybe put the QR code so that you guys can directly go and donate or something, and it would be awesome. And I hope you guys, I really need all of you to like tell your friends and family why this is important. And also let me know if I can do something to make it more relevant for you. So with that, enjoy. Oh, fuck. Okay, sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay, done. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, sorry about that. Let me get it right. Is it correct? Is this correct? Yes. Perfect. Okay, go for it, and I'll move it if it's not right. Привет. Today we have Seema Hernandez, who ran for Senate in both 2018 and 2020.
Yes.
And she actually got almost like, she did an amazing job in 2018. She had about $4,000 to $5,000 raised, and she got 35% of the votes in the entire state of Texas. Like, that is unprecedented unprecedented get out to vote. Very well done. So we're very excited to have you. Would you want to talk a little about that campaign? Like, how did you manage to do that? Like, I've never seen anyone get that many votes with that few little dollars.
Yeah, it was well, very difficult to operate on a budget like that. And we got about 25% of the vote, 250,000 votes.
Wow.
Compared to you know, the front runner. And he ended up spending about $4.1 million and got in the primary and got 640,000 votes.
Okay, I'm going to divide the dollars by vote, so just bear with me.
I'm not good at math. Thank you for doing it.
And from while I'm dividing the votes, what you told me that really I liked it is that you said that you had an easy time talking across the aisle to even Republicans because you were like very short, made eye contact, and you were to the point that got their trust. Can you tell me a little bit more about that strategy too?
Yeah, that is I didn't know that the people I was talking to were Republican voters. So I just talked to anyone who would listen and who would engage, and talking with them about simple issues that pertain to them and that impacted them. And I connected the dots as to how federal policy trickles down to local policy and how that affects their pocketbook. And so they became really engaged in conversation, wanted to see their tax money actually go to something that was tangible into their local communities. And when they asked me, so where can I vote for you? And I said, well, you can find me in the primary on such date, and I'm a Democrat. And they were like, I've never voted for a Democrat before. I'm usually a Republican voter. And I was like, well, I'm not that kind of Democrat. I'm not the Nancy Pelosi or Democrat. And so that's what got them. I said, we've all heard the things of, that Nancy Pelosi's done, or Chuck Schumer, and we need real people running for office that have lived the experience. And that's how I was able to gain a lot of votes and a lot of trust from the community, because I lived in this area and I was one of them, and I wasn't an elitist millionaire.
Well, okay, so from what I see, you spent about 2 cents a vote, because we're going to round up. Okay, now we're going to have a drum roll. And okay. He spent about 639 times as you. So he spent $6.39 per vote.
Yeah. And he historically, the front runner ended up fundraising more than any campaign in history and still lost to Ted Cruz. So what does that tell you?
It tells you that if you engage the people, they will come and vote. But if you don't, they're just going to sleep and watch TV and just, they can't see, there's no reason why you'd want to put that effort to vote.
Yeah. And what it tells me is that money isn't everything. And you cannot rely, although endorsements are great, what matters is the kind of interaction those organizations have with the local community. So what I ended up doing, and which proved to be effective, was use my contacts to gain people on the ground in those areas who would vouch for me, who would say that I'm an organizer that they've worked with, which they have. And it was through organizing with coalitions of people across Texas that helped to elevate our message in our campaign.
Yeah, and like I said, you were able to connect to what mattered to them, as opposed to his word salads. Oh my God, he was dancing. Okay, we're gonna have to play this clip where we. Is it okay if we ask you what your opinion? Okay. Johnny, are you okay with me getting up here?
Lights. How's everybody doing? Good morning. Good morning. How are you all doing? I promise to personally clean your counter before I leave, okay? I love the delayed reaction in the next room over. Buenos dias. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks to everyone who came out to join us, and thank you especially to those who were just innocently drinking a beer here when we walked in. Beautiful, beautiful day. Great moment to be alive in the greatest country on the face of the earth. You're going to have to excuse my voice. We have been on the trail now for 8 days. Can you all see me if I do not stand on the chair?
Well, I have to say, you know, these gimmicks of people who don't know how to dance on the table dancing really don't get voters, they get laughs. And for those people who find that attractive, well, sorry, that's just not cute. That's not how you get votes. Maybe in retrospect, they thought maybe it made him relatable, but what makes him relatable is actually being a person who actually lives the experience.
Actually, it's kind of funny. We actually in the history of the Communist Party CPUSA, this book, everyone should get it. They actually talk about this, about how the Narodnik. Okay, so the Narodniks were this kind of group of like weirdos, who they would do is that they. So in Russia, they had a kind of a feudalism, and let me see if I can find it. So the Narodniks would dress in peasant garbs, and then like try to go to the rural areas to kind of let me see. Okay. Hold on. Narodniks were okay. So the Narodniks view at the time was prevalent among the intelligentsia, as in they were kind of like the petty. They're like the the same as our intelligentsia that hasn't changed. The Narodniks' first endeavor meant to rouse the peasants for a struggle against the czarist government. With this purpose in view, young revolutionary intellectuals donned peasant garb and flocked to the countryside, to the people, as it used to be called. Hence the term narodnik, which narod means the people. But they found no backing among the peasantry, for they did not have a proper knowledge or a proper understanding of the peasants either. Unfortunately, and so it kind of reminds me of that, is that the Democrats have basically they were pandered. I mean, they were like superficially imitating authenticity and I don't know, some sort of relatability without actually being understanding people's, without having empathy or understanding their pain, and that's why they'll always fail, right?
Yeah. Well, along the campaign trail, you hear not just the front runner, but other candidates that are centrist candidates give anecdotal stories from something that they heard to try to seem relatable. And that was like a massive fail, because we know a lot of these centrist candidates are well-funded millionaires who have never lived the experience of being in poverty or being on the fence line community. And when they try to pander, it's like, we can see right through you because you've never addressed these issues before. Why are you addressing them now, if not just to gain votes?
I don't know. Can I ask you about this? How you so as you're Mexican American, right?
Well, American I guess regionally, my parents were born in Mexico. I was born in Texas, so
whatever you like to. What do you got to?
Only because I'm decolonizing, and I know Mexico is a colonized country, but okay. for the purpose of describing where my parents come from, it's Mexico, and I'm American, so Mexican American, Latinx.
Oh, whatever you. Okay, so and you live a little bit like near the Rio Grande border, right?
I used to. I now live in Houston, which is.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. So
no, it's fine.
Do tell us about how the borders been, like how the situation, what kind of struggles that everyone over, or like at least your community went through when you lived there.
So when I mean, it's always an issue when it comes to immigration living on the border, but specifically around these last 4 years with Trump in office, it's been magnified to an extent where now everybody noticed what's going on at the border, things that we've noticed for a while that had been going on during Obama and even during Clinton.
Yep.
And even during Bush, because, we would travel back and forth from Mexico back to Florida and so on and so forth. But specifically around the Trump era, it really highlighted the policies that were being implemented under Trump that are still being continued today under Biden. We still have child separation, no longer like ripping babies out of mothers' arms, but now it's parents self-separating at the border and sending their children unaccompanied across the border for asylum so that they can go with their relatives in this country. So it's still the same, I guess, forced separation, whether through agents or self-separation. It's policies that are separating children from their parents.
One thing that the Democrats will never talk about is why are you sponsoring these death squads that murder their parents, that destroy literally everything in the country and turn it into an extraction colony? And so when you don't tell people about the death squad part and you just show them the immigrant part, I always think they breed racism that way. I don't know if you agree with that or not, but
I actually do. And there isn't enough conversation about our military, our Secretary of State's funding coups and our military training the coups to have these death squads that destabilize countries for the entire purpose of extracting minerals, extracting oil, and extracting the wealth, when a lot of these countries will not give in to the petrodollar or give in to the monetary fund of that is, part of the United States.
Structural adjustment.
Yeah. So it's something that isn't widely known because right now nobody wants to discuss it because the Democrats are in power. They have the House, they have the Senate, and they have the White House, and still they're incapable of actually legislating and governing.
Well, I'd say they are, but they're not governing on behalf of the American people.
Well, they're
governing on behalf of their donors very effectively all the
time. Yeah. So it comes to the question is who really runs our government? Because it's not us.
Who do you think? Obviously we know, but we should let the audience hear what you think, of course.
Yeah, it's obviously the billionaire class. It's Wall Street. It's the investors. It's corporations. It's ALEC. It's APAC. It is major donors to both parties.
I mean, absolutely. The policy never changes. I've seen so many different foreign leaders, from Evo Morales to literally 10 or different. We'll always say the policy never changes with the US. The president's change and it feels very cosmetic. And I guess with regards to Texas, I hear there's some hanky-panky going on regarding the minimum wage, and your governor's kind of psycho. And how did that state came to, what's going on? What happened? Is it influx of big money? Is it influx of right winger? What happened there?
Well, we haven't had a Democratic governor since
Ann Richards,
which it's been about 32, 33 years now. And I tell you, we need a not just a Democratic governor, we just need a governor who gives a damn about the people. Instead, we have a governor who continues to advance policies that literally take away our freedoms and give more liberties to corporations. So in the recent winter storms that we had.
Oh yeah, I actually do talk about that. My Russian teacher, it's funny, he read about this and he was like, the first it said somebody had to pay 16. It's is this a typo? I was like, no. And then he's like, wait, the person had to pay this? I was like, yeah. Even though it's, and then it actually took him a good 15 minutes to wrap his head around the idea that like this is going on. He could not believe that. And he's like, no one's rioting. No. Like it was really funny. It was like he had a big cultural moment. Like, yeah. So do tell us about the blackouts and
what we have is the hypocrisy of the Republican Party that says we need to stop outsourcing jobs to other countries and bring jobs back to the United States. At the same time, they are literally outsourcing our jobs to other countries through appointments on governing boards. Let's just see, for example, ERCOT had several board members on the board to oversee our electric grid, that only a handful of them were from Texas. The others were from other states. And then there was one in particular that was from Australia. So what happened there? And it was that gritty light company that is from Australia that ended up hiking up the prices to $16,000 for a light bill, literally emptying out someone's bank account who literally only had about $16,000 in change to live off of for the rest of his life. And he was supposed to be in retirement, but he lost all his money in the 2008 crash. So this is all he had left in savings working at a grocery store. So it's really terrible how we have Republicans in office governing on liberty and freedom, but that's liberty and freedom for corporations, not liberty and freedom for the actual people in this country and in this state. And then he's also championing or just pushing legislation against transgender children and prosecuting or criminalizing parents who are affirming transgender children and helping them to be transgender and recognized.
Okay. By the way, I'm going to use an example of how to bring jobs back. How to bring jobs to a country, like two examples, and they're both from communists. Okay, so in 1928, Stalin from the, like not Stalin himself, but Molotov had a negotiation with Henry Ford, and basically they agreed to buy so they agreed to buy so many tractors and cars and trucks, provided that Ford manufactured all the cars, trucks, everything they were inside of Russia, and that created good jobs. So that was the first example. The second example is in China under Deng Xiaoping. What happened is that China was noticing that many Western countries were deindustrializing because it was like they were going against global capital, and China needed to open up. China needed basically to get like more consumer goods and move up their manufacturing process from a raw material up to a higher phase. And so what Deng Xiaoping suggested was a form. It's kind of like exactly the 5-year plan, except instead of a 5-year plan, it's a 30-40-year plan. So the idea is that if a company comes, what happens is that a corporation inside of the US, like the shareholders own 100%. Inside of China, they have to form a new entity. 1/3 goes to the employees, like as a co-op almost. 1/3 of the profits go to the government, and the private investors get 1/3. And so on the board, there are both representatives of the employee and representatives of the government, like making sure they don't do crap like, I don't know, dump toxic waste into rivers. And but then again, they have a condition too that says, if you want to sell goods into China, you have to manufacture it here. So it's like an easy way. You can go online, print out the plan, and really, like, you don't even have to try, like, you don't even have to, like, there's nothing to do. But the fact is that our, like, these governors do not want to do that, if that makes sense, right?
Absolutely. It's too easy. And here in this area where I live within about a mile from the closest refinery. Mm-hmm. Which is pretty sad because there's about 12 miles on both sides of the Houston Ship Channel full of refineries. Mm-hmm. And pipelines everywhere. like underground through the ship channel. We're one of the biggest exporters of oil. And I look at it as the occupation of the fossil fuel industry in our neighborhoods. So we have Dutch Shell Oil that doesn't pay any taxes in this country, is subsidized, but pays taxes in their country and gets universal health care, right?
Yeah.
So why aren't they paying taxes here? Why aren't,
because our government lets them.
Right. So why aren't they paying taxes? Why aren't there sustainable jobs here where it benefits us? Instead, we become a center of exploitation and pollution, while their country doesn't have the same kind of exploitation and pollution. And they have healthcare.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I mean, yes, and a lot of the Dutch Shell Oil, like God knows what they do in like Nigeria, Ecuador. I mean, they're just. Really,
I mean, this is what they get away with in the United States.
So that's what I said. God knows.
Yeah.
It's like what we hear about is like only 1/3, like little teeny beat God knows, and yeah, exactly. And it seems like Americans are trained to just accept. I somehow don't even understand how to properly look at, like, how to look at a problem, let alone even understanding it. And so it's always like it's a lot of, I don't know how to explain it. I talk about it, but it's like, I feel like there is I personally believe there's like a group of people who are just comfortable enough that they don't care to understand. And that's how they can get away with exploiting another much larger group. But that's just my theory.
Well, sometimes it's a matter of comfort. So people, they're comfortable not knowing because they're not affected by it and they can buy their way out of the situation. Other people, it's they feel the oppression, they feel the exploitation, but they don't have the funds to fight it. They don't have the strength to fight it because they're so busy just trying to get by, just barely surviving. And those of us who have the know-how, the knowledge, and the time to do it, what we struggle with is trying to figure out how to make ends meet. And so we only get as far as we're able to afford. So if we had the time and if we had the finances, then we can do it. There's people who have the time and finances and do not a damn thing. Not a damn thing. They go to brunch.
So do you have any works or projects that you'd like to talk about as like after the Senate campaign, or are you going to go back to politics again?
So after the 2018 campaign, I just ended up going back to organizing and doing more, how do I say this, more intentional organizing around environmental issues and environmental project. I ended up joining Prog Code and ended up going to the Poor People's Campaign. So I was simultaneously doing the Poor People's Campaign, organizing, and projects in Prog Code. And so now, after the 2020 campaign, I continued to do the work within Prog Code, organizing around environmental justice, specifically around an ITC fire that happened here back in 2019, March 17th to be exact, 2019, where we had an explosion at a refinery that lasted more than 9 days, I believe.
Wow.
It ignited, it was turned off, and then it reignited, and then it finally just turned off. But there were several organizing days that we had after that, and then follow-ups, and then meetings with elected officials. And since then, we've been developing an air monitor project that helps keep the industry accountable and helps people stay informed. And we're still in that beta testing.
Okay. So I guess I'm just curious, like, what is the what is the next plan, I guess? Do you want to continue with this?
Oh yeah, no, this is a project that's close to me because it's in my neighborhood, in our neighborhood here in Pasadena. And on top of that, we're forming an organizing cooperative that is kind of why we ended up having this interview, because I was discussing on Twitter how we don't need leaders. We need a decentralized organizing structure, right? And figuring out a way to organize and build movements without having to do it around a specific party or a leader or an organization.
Okay. So I'm gonna say that Lenin will totally say that I'm just gonna say you're totally wrong. And funny thing is that he will explain why you are totally wrong. No offense. But
Not taken.
it's just that okay, so the thing about it is that Lenin has so far never been wrong. So I'm like, okay, so what we're gonna do is read about what is to be done, i.e., how to build a movement. And so what's going on is that let me just quickly explain. In Russia, there at this time there was a small worker population who had just been wage workers. So the way capitalism works is that you have the big like mass manufacturing. So let's say that instead of like before you had a little old lady spinning, the factory comes, and then boom, what they can do what they can do in 1 hour, like the old lady may make maybe, I don't know, like 100 spools of yarn in a month. They can do that in 10 minutes. And so then they flood the market so that it becomes very, very cheap, and then these people go out of business. Then they have nothing, and then they go and join because so they used to have an artisan business, but then boom, they have absolutely nothing, because it's kind of like what I mean. This happened a billion times over at mom and pop stores, like over in America, like everywhere. And then they have nothing, so they have to go and work for the factory because that's the only place that's hiring. And of course, because these people are so poor and have nothing, the factory can then dictate, okay, we're going to pay you 10 cents for 10,000 hours, like just enough. And so that's kind of like how capitalism develops. And it keeps happening. This is the same process that keeps happening over and over. And whenever it gets a little too expensive, boom, the factory leaves. And then it goes and ruins another group of peasantry, or like that just puts a lot of, it's just the way it is. And the idea with Marx and Engels is, of course, that what if, well, like these factories don't happen by themselves. So what if like we had peasants to take, well, I'm sorry, not peasants. Why am I saying this? Proletarian, wage workers, proletarian. What if we had wage workers who to take over who share on the profits, and then we don't have to basically what if you had a wage worker to share the profits, then we would not have to like and then like everyone in society can benefit. And and that was their idea. So then what happened is that what you're describing, okay, Janet is an anarchist, and we won't hold that, I love her, so we don't want to hold that against her. But there was a movement for the anarchist movement, and the problem, and so in anarchist movement is basically what you were suggesting. But then what happened was that in Paris, they had the Paris Commune of 1871. And instead of, so there was a time when the workers took state power, as in when they overthrew their like despot. And, but then the next week, not the next week, okay. Okay, so in March, okay, okay, so they were there from March 18th to May 20th. And then like in the final, in the beginning, May 21st, the French army came over and just like murdered all of them, and they were killed. And then Marx, Engels, and all the people who were advancing this worker movement came together, and then they had a really heavy investigation of what went wrong. And Marx and Engels said, Marx and Engels basically said that like in June June 13th in 1871, after they went, they basically explained how it was because these workers did not take over state power and did not use the machinery of the state to smash the bourgeois, the people who don't earn wages. And so that's kind of, I guess, why I was so it seems like and anarchism has never succeeded wherever it's been tried. I'm not saying it can't, but it just has not. And the reason why is because there's always a counter revolution, like the Contras, and they get so bloody, and you need the state, like that's kind of the idea. So what is to be done had a different problem, because Russia was more of a third world country. So Russia had about 2 million workers and about 100 million people in the rural areas. So there wasn't such a big capitalistic, the population had not been like turned into a capitalist, they had, because the factories didn't go on, like they hadn't had all these city dwellers, blah, blah, blah. And so Lenin is trying to solve the problem of how to kind of get a dictatorship of the proletariat when we have this kind of demographics. And ironically or unironically, Texas looks a lot like what Tsarist Russia looked like back in the day when you look at the demographics. So now with the what is to be done burning questions of our movement, what happened is that all these like elders in the Russian Social Democratic Party got arrested, and all these like young people came within those years, and then they were only focusing on economism, as in just like economism is a good way, is like when the Democrats talk about kitchen table issues. God, I hate it when they do that. And so right now, Lenin explains that that's like a really stupid idea, and then he gives you a how-to manual. And so with that, we begin. Okay, so this is exactly what you were talking about, Seema. Spontaneity of the masses is kind of like what you just described, and Lenin explains why that is a bad idea.
Well, that's not necessarily, I guess, verbatim what we're doing. And I know that you referred to it as anarchism, and that that tends to fail because we're not using the tools of the machine. And that's kind of the whole point of doing something that is decentralized. And let me tell you why and give you a little bit of background as the experience I've had on the campaign. So as a candidate, and I know you know this, when we're using the tools of the oppressor, they also have access to the information that you gather. So for example, NGP van, when you enter your information in NGP van, you end up giving, you don't keep the information, you end up giving it away to the same machine that's going to be utilizing it against you, and it's sabotaging your campaign.
Okay,
right?
correct. But that's not what Lenin did. They shot the Tsar, so that whole machine is gone. And then now they're using the NGP van. If we're just speaking metaphorically, we're using the NGP van to like then disenfranchise corporate leaders instead of poor people.
But do we need corporate leaders like that?
No. I mean, you can't get rid of all of them, right? Like obviously
you can, but you're not giving them a playbook as to how you operate or run your campaign, or
giving. Okay, Lenin just gave a playbook here that's available on the internet, and they haven't been able to co-opt it. So, just saying, this playbook has been open since 1902. So.
I mean, how successful has it been?
Okay, so they have built the Soviet Union, China, Vietnam, Venezuela, Cuba. They have cured smallpox, defeated the Nazis in World War II, invented television, radio, went to outer space. China has brought nearly 2 billion people out of poverty and helped decolonize all of Africa. And in India, we have basically, we've also like done so much, and all of it is because of Lenin. So it's been the most successful thing in the past, like ever. Basically, it is the like literally I don't know how much more we can achieve, like defeating the Nazis, Cuba.
I know,
Going
I'm not saying that that's not true. I'm just saying that for this time, like doing it a different way, it may not work according to Lenin. But
I'm just saying that it has never worked without Lenin's plan in history. Even like the most recent one, that like the most recent country, Bolivia, that was the Lenin plan. Yeah, literally, like there's nothing that actually has like worked without Lenin.
okay, and this book has been open, you said, or the playbook has been open since like 1902, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never read the book or the playbook or the rules of the game for
I guess it's not so much the rules. It's like basically this is what he suggested to do with the party, and everyone who's done what he suggested has everyone who's actually successfully defeated capitalism has done what he suggested. And like it's like 100 to like if it's like if you have defeated capitalism, it's Lenin's playbook, else they have failed, is like basically the two options I've seen in the past 120 years of history.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead.
Oh,
so we'll begin with section 2.
All right, I'm gonna read this because section 2, you said?
Spontaneity of the masses and the consciousness of the social democrats, because that's kind of what we're talking about.
Well, I'm gonna learn about this, but I'm gonna stick to my plan regardless.
Sure. But I get sure, but I mean,
but now I feel like challenged to prove, no, this.
You're not going to prove Lenin wrong. That's like,
well, we don't know yet, but now
no. We know yet. We know. I mean, it's like trying to prove like, okay, you're not just proving Lenin wrong. You're going to be proving Lenin, Einstein, Mao, Castro, Stalin, like all of them wrong. Like you're not going to do that. I'm sorry. Just because the way it works is that in order to have in order to have any kind of success against capitalism, you need to have a mass movement. And but the problem is you're trying to have a mass movement under the pressures of capitalism. And so if you kind of don't put up these checks and balances, what's going to happen is you become the Democratic Party, given enough time under capitalism.
I
so
think that is a bit unfair and presumptuous.
Not you per se.
Right, but as far as like, because we've seen where the movement is now, right? We rely on
there is no movement.
What's I'm saying, the movement, right? Everyone calls it the movement, and we're relying on these PACs that uphold leaders that get co-opted.
That is because they are not also following Lenin's plan. They are there to be a district. So the Tsar also had this. Let me it's really funny. By the way, when I meant you, I don't mean you. I meant a generic. Oh, no. I'm sorry.
No, I understand, but like the structure and the plan for what we have isn't to
hold on.
Overthrow capitalism overnight, because that movement building takes
30, 40, 50 or longer. Like Lenin took about 30 years.
And I don't know how the movement expected to overthrow capitalism in 4 years.
You can't. Like no one did. That's ridiculous. That's a stupid advertisement. Okay. So so the reason why you have all these PACs is again in this book, and even Lenin talks about this. Okay, so hold on. So then so this was in 1902, and the workers had won some concessions. Perceiving the movement of the workers and peasants was sweeping the country in a formidable torrent, the Tsarist government did everything it could to stem the revolutionary tide. Armed force was used with increasing frequency to suppress the worker strikes and demonstrations. The bullet and the knout became the government's usual reply to the action of the workers and the peasants. Prisons and places of exile were filled to overflowing. While tightening up measures of repression, the Tsarist government tried at the same time to resort to other non-repressive and flexible measures to divert the workers from the revolutionary movement. Attempts were made to create bogus workers' organizations under the aegis of the gendarme police. They were dubbed as organizations of Organizations of Police Socialism, or Zubatov Organization.
You just described this country and the party.
Hold on. After the name of the colonel of Gerrymander Zubatow, who is the founder of the police-controlled workers' organization. Through its agent, Ukraine tried to get the workers to believe the Tsarist government was itself prepared to assist them in securing the satisfaction of economic demands. Why engage in politics? Why make a revolution when the Tsar himself is on the side of the workers? Zubatov agents would insinuate to the workers. Zubatov organizations were formed in several cities. So I guess what I'm saying is we should think of the PACs as those Zubatov organizations that's kind of meant to, like, I don't know, do what they, instead of the Tsar, they kind of are doing it to the Democratic Party.
I agree with that. And you just described the Democratic Party and the entire institution of the United States.
I did not. Lenin did.
Lenin did. Lenin did.
Yes, he did. Then that's the creepy thing, is because capitalism is like so automated. Literally, like, the same thing happens over and over and over and over, and then you're just like, what the hell? How did this happen over and over and over? So,
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna read chapter 2, the spontaneity of the masses and the consciousness of the social democrats. We have said that our movement, much more extensive and deep than the movement of the 70s, must be inspired with the same devoted determination and energy that inspired the movement at the time. Indeed, no one, we think, has until now doubted that the strength of the present day movement lies in the awakening of the masses, principally the industry proletarian, and that its weakness lies in the lack of consciousness and initiative among the revolutionary leaders.
Okay, that is there's no lie detected for anything we hear here, and I'd say revolutionary leaders in America. Go ahead.
However,
yeah, Lenin is hilarious, so you'll love him. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, however, of a late staggering discovery has been made, which threatens a establish the. Okay, yeah, you're gonna have to read that.
Okay, we'll wait for Janet to come then.
My English is not good looking.
Okay, okay, Janet, can you read the second paragraph, please?
Yeah. However, of late, a staggering discovery has been made, which threatens to disestablish all hitherto prevailing views on this question. This discovery was made by
Rabochaya Diallo.
Thank you. which in its polemic
means trolling.
Eskra and Zarya did not confine itself to making objections on separate points, but tried to ascribe general disagreements to a more profound cause, to the different appraisals of the relative importance of the spontaneous and consciously methodical element. Say it again.
Rabochaya Diallo
formulated its indictment as a belittling of significance of the objective of the spontaneous elements of development. To this we say, had the polemics with Iskra and Azara resulted in nothing more than causing Rabochaya.
Rabochaya means workers, and Diallo means day. So just call it Workers' Day.
Workers' Day. To hit upon these general disagreements, that alone would give us considerable satisfaction. So significant is this thesis, and so clear is the light it sheds on the pretension of the present day theoretical and political differences that exist among Russian social democrats. For this reason, the question of the relation between consciousness and spontaneity is of such enormous general interest, and for this reason, the question must be dealt with in great detail.
Okay, so for people who don't understand what spontaneity of the masses means, is that it's kind of like, I think we spoke about this, but it's like Black Lives Matter, like you will see this Black Lives Matter, where they think that if they kind of just like go in and protest suddenly boom, like magically the Senate or whatever city council is going to enough like magically going to be like, okay, the police are not going to get $1 billion $1 trillion industry, we're going to abolish the police. And then they think that like a lot, like they think that if people saw enough like videos of police violence, people will just be like, oh my god, I must do something. And so that is kind of the spontaneity of the masses, like just kind of like relying only on spontaneous action by the masses, like, and that just never happens because that's just not the way life works. So instead of the spontaneous element of development, Lenin wants to develop consciousness of the masses. So the idea is to have the masses be very aware and politically conscious, as in like to know what's going on, and then work together in a single party where they all agree to organizing means to all agree to coordinate, well, party organization, whatever you want to call it, like, or whatever translation or mistranslation from Old Russian you want to get to, organization structure, whatever, basically is necessary because, as is the czar, the American government is basically in 17 something. James Madison said the purpose of our government is to protect those with property against those without. And now our government does this on a global scale. Like, for example, it protects those with property in Hong Kong against those without. Venezuela, Belarus, like wherever there's a coup, you can always be sure that it is protecting those with property from those without. So they have had about 200 plus years to build that apparatus up. And so it will take a lot of coordination, if even it is possible. We don't even know if it's possible, but if it is possible, it has to take a lot of study. Everyone, like, we need collective mass action on scales we've never seen before, like India, like think about billions of people. And it needs to be very thought out, methodical, planned, and very well studied. And we really need to know what the problem is. And we'll get to this. It's like about, because there are other ways in which the powers to be hold up their power, and it's not that easy. And then there's imperialism and labor, blah blah blah. There's thousands of ways. But even before then, like, I'm guessing that whoever's watching this program is politically conscious because you're watching me. You wouldn't watch me if you weren't. Okay, sorry, I should not be so braggadocious about my politically consciousness skills, but I'm not going to be modest either. Or maybe I don't know.
People look to you because they want to learn, or they already know and they want to be in like-minded circles.
Exactly. Okay, they're trying to, exactly, that's a better way to say. But so basically the idea is that everyone needs to get together and learn to learn about the problem, because it's not easy to actually know about problems. So people can kind of see imperialism as, like, imperialism is, for example, when they're bombing Iraq, yeah, everyone can be like, okay, that's imperialism. But then there's like so much other ways, such as, like, I don't know, like dumping goods into like a neighboring market to make this go, like there are thousands of other things, like, and that's not so obvious, but we need to learn that, because otherwise, like, we can't solve a problem we don't understand, is half the thing. And so with that, Lenin explains why we can't rely on the spontaneity of the masses. So Janet, would you mind reading in the previous chapter?
The beginning of the spontaneous upsurge. In the previous chapter, we pointed out how universally absorbed the education youth of Russia was in the theories of Marxism in the middle of the 90s. In the same period, the strikes that followed the famous St. Petersburg Industrial War of 1896.
Hold on. Okay, so basically it says that in 1895, everyone in the party was basically arrested. And then, so then, like, all these like new young people came. And Marxism, okay, so we found bourgeois, okay, the legal Marxists, as they were called, were such fellow travelers. Oh, okay, sorry. I'm sorry, let's start. Okay. It usually happens with big social movements in history that transient fellow travelers fasten onto them. legal Marxists, as they were called, were such fellow travelers. Marxism began to spread widely throughout Russia. So we found bourgeoisie intellectuals decking themselves out in a Marxist garb. We see that, like some random YouTubers use the word like solidarity, but then does not know that Lenin was never in Mexico, was Trotsky and whatever. Not mentioning names. They published their article in newspapers and periodicals that were legal, that is, allowed by the czarist government. Like being on MSNBC, that's a red flag. So basically, these young people had read all these legal publications, and in St. Petersburg, what happened is that there was a big strike. They won some concessions, but then in 1902, they laid off about 4,000 workers. So go ahead.
Okay, so Industrial War of 1896 assumed a similar general character. Their spread over the whole of Russia clearly showed the depth of the newly awakening popular movement. And if we are to speak of the spontaneous element, then, of course, it is this strike movement which, first and foremost, must be regarded as spontaneous. But there is spontaneity and spontaneity. Okay. Strikes occurred in Russia in the 70s and 60s, and even in the first half of the 19th century. And they were accompanied by the spontaneous destruction of machinery. Compared with these revolts, in quotes, the strikes of the 90s might even be described as conscious, in quotes. To such an extent do they mark the progress which the working class movement made in that period. This shows that the spontaneous element, in essence, represents nothing more nor less than consciousness in an embryonic form. Even the primitive revolts express the awakening of consciousness to a certain extent. The workers were losing their age-long faith in the permanence of the system which oppressed them and began, I shall not say to understand, but to sense the necessity for collective resistance, definitely abandoning their slavish submissions to the authorities. But this was, nevertheless, more in the nature of outbursts of desperation and vengeance than of struggle. The strikes of the 90s revealed far greater flashes of consciousness. Definite demands were advanced. The strike was carefully timed. Known cases and instances in other places were discussed, etc. The revolts were simply the resistance of the oppressed, whereas the systematic strikes represented the class struggle in embryo, but only in embryo. Taken by themselves, these strikes were simply trade union struggles, not yet social democratic struggles. They marked the awakening antagonisms between workers and employers. But the workers were not and could not be conscious of the irreconcilable antagonisms of their interest to the whole of the modern political and social system.
Hold on. Let's repeat this line. Okay, so in workers, the irreconcilable antagonism of their interest. Irreconcilable antagonism of the workers' system interests to the whole of modern political and social systems. So the workers' interests are antagonistic to the entire collection of the whole system of modern political and social system. Like it, hence, and it's only gotten worse since Lenin's time. So I just want people to understand this. Okay.
Okay. So that's i.e. theirs was not yet social democratic consciousness. In this sense, the strikes of the 90s, despite the enormous progress they represented as compared with the revolts, remained a purely spontaneous movement. We have said that there could not have been social democratic consciousness among the workers. It would have to be brought to them from without.
Interesting. Okay, go ahead.
The history of all countries shows that the working class, exclusively by its own effort, is able to develop only trade union consciousness, i.e., the conviction that it is necessary to combine in unions, fight the employers, and strive to compel the government to pass necessary labor legislation.
Okay, so this is basically what everyone in the so-called American left, whatever that is, apparatus, like basically, this is everyone. Trade union consciousness at best. Okay, go ahead.
The theory of socialism, however, grew out of this philosophic, historical, and economic theories elaborated by educated representatives of the property classes by intellectuals. By their social status, the founders of modern scientific socialism, Marx and Engels, themselves belong to the bourgeois intelligentsia.
Mm-hmm.
In the very same way, in Russia, the theoretical doctrine of social democracy arose altogether independently of the spontaneous growth of the working class movement. It rose as a natural and inevitable outcome of the development of thought among the revolutionary socialist intelligentsia. In the period under discussion, the middle 90s, this doctrine not only represented the completely formulated program of the emancipation of labor group, but had already won over to its side the majority of the revolutionary youth in Russia.
So basically, Russia's DSA crowd, like the college, like the young, wide-eyed, college-educated DSA crowd who want to do good. That's who they had won over. But Seema, are you still with us?
I am. I'm listening and I'm reading and I'm scrolling through to see what DSA is up to, and I was like,
Yeah, they're always not up to. They're kind of strange. I mean,
well, and that's the thing.
ahead.
It varies from group to group.
Yes, it's not consistent.
Yeah.
How are they on your state? Exactly. It's like very. There's no set. Like no one's like telling them what. Like it's like very. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's all.
They're often a mess.
No, there are some good chapters, and they do a lot of work and stuff like that, and it really just depends on the area and who is involved in them, and who's running them. So,
and that's to say, like, if it works for you, good, that's great. Stick with them, organize, pay your dues.
No.
That's just me.
I'm going to say no to that because DSA says, let me read you this charter from DSA. So it says Section 3 of the Democratic Socialist Bylaw says, members can be expelled if they are under the discipline of any self-defined democratic centralist organization. Okay, so a democratic centralist is a Marxist-Leninist organizational principle which consists of taking democratic consensus and then forcing an organization to execute the consensus of its membership. And so basically, this is how I interpret this clause. If you're really good at advocating for workers, the best advocate for workers was I don't know, like either the Soviet Union's number one. Then you can't be part of DSA is basically what they're saying. So I'm going to say, if you want to cosplay for a little while, make friends, hang out, go for it. But it is a counter-revolutionary organization.
All right, so you want me to go on?
Hold on. Seema, do you have anything else?
Well, in my mind, I'm like, I understand what the text says. I understand what the charter says. And given that all the DSA chapters don't operate the same, they operate differently, and their organizing structure may be a bit different. that may not apply to every single one as far as how they run individually. And what I've seen come out of the Nevada Democrats is a very unique organizing strategy that seemed to work for them, but may not necessarily work for other chapters. So that's why I say if it works for you and it's in your bailiwick, I personally have outgrown certain structures and have outgrown organizations, and I also don't feel like I need to be validated by organizations. And I'm still willing to work with them, but it's not. See you making that face, like Seema, you're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
No, I'm not. Okay, go ahead.
It's just like my own personal experience. Like,
okay.
I don't feel like I need to pay the dues to a organization like DSA to be considered a socialist. They don't own socialism. Socialism
absolutely not
monopolized, right?
No. The socialist, I think, is like learning the idea. The first step is just basically learning everything that's like wrong with capitalism, and then if you think like once you understand everything you that's wrong with capitalism, and then you think logically, there's only one road, it'll take you there. That's what I think. But what I was saying is that you are right about your critique with an organization like the DSA, but like I said, I guess for now, let's leave it at that, because
I'm already in trouble with DSA, so what the fuck?
Okay. Yeah, I'll just be leaving it at that, because I don't want to antagonize. Sometimes it can be frustrating. Oh my God, I'm still like.
I mean, and again, it's not every organization is the same, not every structure is the same, and not every chapter is the same. So it's but like my own unique experience. I tend to have outgrown that part of my life.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So hold on. Okay, we've already kept you for so long. Okay.
Like not to be an ass, I've outgrown it. So.
Okay. Janet, can you is it possible for you to read one more paragraph, or is it too late? Let's read till the start of section B. How about that?
All right. I mean, what do you want me to do? You want me to just read?
There's two more paragraphs. Basically.
Yeah. All right. I'll get through them. Hence, we have both the spontaneous awakening of the working masses, their awakening to conscious life and conscious struggle, and a revolutionary youth armed with social democratic theory and straining towards the workers. In this connection, it is particularly important to state the oft forgotten and comparatively little known fact that although the early social democrats of that period zealously carried on economic agitation, being guided in this activity by the truly useful indications contained in the pamphlet on agitation, then still in manuscript, they did not regard this as their sole task. On the contrary, from the very beginning, they set for Russian social democracy the most far-reaching historical tasks in general, and the task of overthrowing the autocracy in particular. Thus, towards the end of 1895, the St. Petersburg group of Social Democrats, which founded the League of Struggle for the Emancipation of the Working Class, prepared the first issue of the newspaper called Workers' Day. This issue was ready to go to press when it was seized by the gendarmes. How do you say that?
Yeah, they're the gendarme. It's a French word for police, and I don't know why he keeps using the French word for it. His notes are also just as crazy. Like they're always written in 4 different languages. Like he first writes in Russia, and then like he annotates in German, and then there's a second French annotation. I don't know why he does it, but that's what he does. Okay.
On the night of December 8th, 1895, in a raid on a house of one of the members of the group, Anatoly Alexeyevich Vanayev.
Okay, by the way, he was oh my God, this obnoxious Twitter DSA member really annoyed me with this one now, because I said something like yeah, all these like and then she was like, oh my God, they're like I was like talking about this group of people, and she was like, oh, they must have been all opportunists, and I was or something about like getting ahead, and I'm like, no, half of them died in Siberia, and Alexei Vaneyev was one of them, who died in eastern Siberia in 1899 from consumption, which he contracted during solitary confinement in prison. Prior to the banishment. That is why we considered it possible to publish the above information. The authenticity which we guarantee, for it comes from persons who were closely and directly acquainted with Vayenev, I think, Lenin. So, yeah, half of them did not come, like 50 of them did not come back. I think about 40 came back from their exile in Siberia. And Lenin was one of them. Yeah, go ahead.
So that the first edition of Workers' Day was not destined to see the light of day. The leading article in this issue, which perhaps 30 years hence some Ruskaya Starina will unearth Russian Star will unearth in the archives of the Department of Police.
Yep.
Outline the historical task of the working class in Russia and place the achievement of political liberty at their head. The issue also contained an article entitled "What Are Our Ministers Thinking About?", which dealt with the crushing of the elementary education committees by the police.
This sounds familiar. We actually read about this, if you remember, with was it with Paul or was it with Chris? No, the one about we read about it with the school principals.
Oh yeah. What's up?
Yeah.
It was Paul, I think.
No, it was David.
Oh, it was David. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This is exactly what we were. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so what were the ministers thinking about? Which dealt with the, oh wait, I already did that. In addition, there was some correspondence from St. Petersburg and from other parts of Russia, e.g. a letter on the massacre of the workers of Yaroslavl Gubernia.
Yeah.
Yaroslavl.
That's where Bernie went for his honeymoon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay, let's gonna play that video where he's doing, yep, that's where video where he's doing, yep, that's where he went.
All right. He had fun there too.
Yes.
This first effort, if we are not mistaken, of the Russian Social Democrats of the 90s was not a purely local or less still economic newspaper, but one that aimed to unite the strike movement with the revolutionary movement against the autocracy, and to win over the side of social democracy all who were oppressed by the policy of reactionary obscurantism.
I don't know what it means, so let's look that up. Okay, it means the practice of this is great. Okay, this is going to be our insult of the day, or our definition of the day, or something. This will like describe everything the Democratic Party does. The practice of deliberately preventing the facts or full details of something from becoming known.
Okay.
Like when does he not perfectly describe the Democratic Party? Like sometimes you don't even have to. I'm glad I've learned this word, obscurantism.
Obscurantism. All right. No one in the slightest degree acquainted with the state of the movement at the period could doubt that such a paper would have met with warm response among the workers of the capital and the revolutionary intelligentsia, and would have had a wide circulation. The failure of the enterprise merely showed that the Social Democrats of that period were unable to meet the immediate requirements of the time, owing to their lack of revolutionary experience and practical training. This must be said, too, with regard to the Petersburg C. Rabichi.
Oh, it's called the Workers' journal, workers paper, workers something like it's like a periodical, workers periodical paper. I don't know. Just call it workers paper. How about that?
Okay, workers paper, and particularly with regard to Robochaya Gazeta.
Okay, Workers Gazette.
Yep. And the manifesto of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party, founded in the spring of 1898. Of course, we would not dream of blaming the Social Democrats of that time for its unpreparedness. But in order to profit from the experience of that movement and to draw practical lessons from it, we must thoroughly understand the causes and significance of this or that shortcoming. It is therefore highly important to establish the fact that a part, perhaps even a majority, of the Social Democrats active in the period of 1895 through 1998 justly considered it possible even then, at the very beginning of the spontaneous movement, to come forward with a most extensive program in a militant tactical line. Lack of training of the majority of the revolutionaries, an entirely natural phenomenon, could not have roused any particular fears. Once the tasks were correctly defined, once the energy existed for repeated attempts to fulfill them, temporary failures represented only part misfortune. Revolutionary experience and organizational skill are things that can be acquired, provided the desire is there to acquire them. Provided the shortcomings are recognized, which in revolutionary activity is more than halfway towards their removal.
Interesting. Provided the shortcomings are recognized, in which revolutionary activity is more than halfway towards their removal. Okay, go ahead.
But what was only part misfortune became full misfortune when this consciousness began to grow dim. It was very much alive among the members of the groups mentioned. When there appeared people and even social democratic organs that were prepared to regard shortcomings as virtues, that even tried to invent a theoretical basis for their slavish cringing before spontaneity. It is time to draw conclusions from this trend, the content of which is incorrectly and too narrowly characterized as economism. I can't say the last word.
Okay. So, Seema, do you have anything else? Like, do you have any, how do people check out your work? Any parting comments? And thank you so much I hope you enjoyed it at least, and we should do it again.
Well, I don't have anything yet, because we're still in the putting processes together for the org that we're putting together. And we're still in beta testing, which is something that we rely on tech and scientists to look at the data, to compile it, like front end, back end, full stack tech for the devices. But we are in testing mode.
Awesome. Well, let us know when you launch is it an app, a product, whatever it is, a project?
Both. It is both an actual physical product with the app, and it's all open source crowdsourcing information.
Aha. Okay. Well, let us know, and I hope you enjoyed this much of Lenin, and we're gonna have to do this again. Welcome, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the sections A, B of what is to be done. So we have one question from Rebecca, who asked me if these readings are online, and yes, they are at vilenin.substack.com. We'll put the link on the description box under both Twitch and YouTube. The second question that somebody asked me is what I think of Makhnovia. So Makhnovia was this alleged little village in Ukraine way back that in 1919 or 1920 that got shut down. And the problem is that it would require me to teach, go through a lot of history. So I will take a rain check on that for another day because I think we need to just kind of like, there's a lot to learn. So I could be open to doing an entire, like a special episode about that. Meanwhile, this week we have Timur Timur, who is a Chinese Hui Muslim, who's going to talk about like who went over about 1,000 years of history in this week's episode. So check us out at historically.substack.com. We're also getting an article about the history of private property, and you'd be surprised. Even in England, they didn't have private property until like capitalism, basically. They had communal enclosure property with no enclosures and stuff like that. And I also want to do the response video to Dennis Prager because he's so painfully wrong about capitalism. He literally does not understand capitalism. So keep that out, and please be sure to hit like, subscribe, and as soon as I hang up from here, we will add the Twitch buttons. But join us again next Sunday at 1300 for Sundays with Lenin. And with that, I say, до свидания.